Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How we doing? Man, Antonelli here. Happy New Year to you all. Welcome to 2020. And in honor of that, we're going to look at the all-decade team. Okay? Now, this all-decade team was done by ESPN. Okay? So this is not my all-decade team. This is the ESPN all-decade team. All right? But I'm going to give you my opinion of what I think of these guys. Do I think they missed anywhere? And more importantly than hearing my opinion, I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with this all-decade team? Do you not agree? Where do you specifically not agree? And let me know in the comment section below which players they missed on and who you think should be in there instead. Okay, let's take a look. All right, guys, so here is the all-decade team for the 2010s. Now let's start off looking at catcher. So ESPN gave it to Buster Posey, had a 128 OPS plus, 42.2 WAR. And basically, when it comes down to it, it's him or it's Yadi Molina. Those are the two guys that came to mind when I thought of it. And that's who they have basically as the two guys that fought it out. So when you look at WAR, wins above replacement, Posey beats Molina by a decent amount, 42.2 to 31.9. And if you look at pitch framing, it becomes even bigger. So Fangraphs, their WAR incorporates pitch framing into it, and then it becomes 53 for Posey and 41.7 for Molina. So they've got Posey as a better framer and better receiver. And then you've got the 3 World Series for Posey, only 1 for Molina. Molina's played more games, right? So he played almost 1,300 games behind the plate, and Posey played a little less than 1,000. But Posey's going to get it. All right, let me know what you guys think about that. At first base, they've got Joey Votto, a 152 OPS plus, 52.1 WAR. Now, the other guys that they were looking at and considering were Miguel Cabrera and Paul Goldschmidt. Now, when I looked at this, the very first name that popped into my head was Miguel Cabrera. That's who I thought was going to get it. But then you look at some of the stats of Joey Votto, and I know Joey Votto had an amazing decade, obviously. But here's a couple of things to think about. He led all batters in the decade in runs created and on-base percentage, and he was third in WAR. He won an MVP. He matched Cabrera in weighted runs created plus, which most people don't even know what that means. But he was also a much better fielder during the decade than Cabrera was. So it's a tough one, but I get it why Votto's there. Damn, Cabrera could really hit though, huh? All right, let's go to second base. Second base, they have Robinson Cano. All right, Cano had 132 OPS plus and 54.2 WAR. The other guys they looked at were Jose Altuve and Ann Kinsler. Ann Kinsler, interesting. So Altuve, I think, recently obviously has been probably the best all-around second baseman. But Cano, and I know Cano's kind of slowed down here the last couple of years. But man, early in the decade and even midway through, this guy just raked. So here are some of his numbers. He was averaging from 2010 to 2017, 303 batting average, 362 slugging, on base, 503 slugging. Crazy numbers. Averaged 27 homers and right under 100 RBI per year, 99 RBI. And he trails only Mike Trout in WAR for the decade. And if you look at WAR, he leads Altuve by a good amount, 54.2 to 38.5. And then they looked at the best seasons of each guy between Cano and Altuve, and Cano had 5 of the 7 better seasons than Altuve. So Cano's a beast. And I know it's been a little bit, it's been a little while now, but he was a stud for most of the decade. Shortstops. They've got Francisco Lindor, 119 OPS and 28.6 WAR. The other guys to consider, Simmons, Tulowitzki, Correa. First guy that came to my mind was Tulowitzki. And that might have just been because, Tulowitzki was kind of pretty much the best shortstop in the league. But when I was playing, and I was lucky enough, I got to play with Lindor. I was actually with Lindor in spring training. He was very young. And I tell this story all the time. It's really weird. I spent the whole spring training with him, and I thought he was really, really good. Sometimes you forget. You see these guys like I saw Manny Machado when he was very young when I was with the Orioles, and then Lindor when he was with the Indians. He still is with the Indians. You watch him play, and you're like, damn, these guys are pretty good. But never do I think like they're going to be who they turned out to be, the Manny Machado and Francisco Lindor of today. And it's just crazy. I must be a poor talent evaluator. But anyways, let's see. So Tulowitzki, great beginning of the decade, right? Early in the 2010s. And then Lindor and Correa have kind of been more towards the second half, right? Younger players. And then you get Simmons, who defensively is just freak show, right? He's like maybe the greatest defender ever at shortstop. It's unbelievable. And so Simmons actually leads in WAR, but he doesn't really hit a whole lot, right? He doesn't really slug. His OPS is under 700. And so they gave it to Lindor. All right. Third base. They've got Adrian Beltre, 130 OPS plus and 51.0 WAR. The other guys they thought about or considered, Josh Donaldson, Longoria, and Arenado. I knew Beltre was a great player, but I didn't realize, if you go look at his stats, I didn't realize he was that good for that long. He's just an all-around stud, especially the beginning. The beginning of the decade. He's done playing now. He missed a little bit of the decade, but for the first 7 years from 2010, starting in 2010, he averaged 6.5 WAR per season, and he had 5 top 10 MVP finishes. I did not realize that. Again, I knew he was a good player. I know he was a great defender, and he could mash. I did not realize that he was that freaking good. So, I thought of Longoria when I first thought about it. Again, probably because he was my draft class, my age, and I played against him a lot. And then when I think of today, I think of Arenado. But all right, outfield, easy one is Mike Trout, 176 OPS plus and 72.5 WAR. Holy shnikes! So they got Trout, they got Mookie Betts, 134 OPS plus and 42 WAR, and then they got Andrew McCutchen, 135 OPS plus and 41.2 WAR. So Trout's a no doubt, no-brainer. Mookie Betts, it's interesting because when I think of Mookie Betts, I don't think of him been doing it long enough, but his WAR is really high for a guy that it isn't like he has done a ton. He's still somewhat young, and then you got Andrew McCutchen. Sometimes I think people may forget because he's still playing, obviously, but he's not what he used to be. He used to be an absolute stud. The others that they considered was one, Giancarlo Stanton. All right. So a couple things they talk about is how it's not a super strong decade for outfielders. Trout's best player of the decade. That's easy. Mookie, basically a half a decade. Right, and then McCutchen was really good from basically up until 2015. He was averaging 6.2 WAR, and he had 4 top 5 MVP finishes, and he won in 2013. Kind of forgot that. I mean, I knew he was really, really good, but it's interesting. DH, so they gave Miguel Cabrera, they gave it to him as the DH, 153 on pace or OPS plus and 43.5 WAR. The other guys they consider Donaldson, Goldschmidt, Nelson Cruz, who rakes, David Ortiz. And I'm good with this. I said earlier, Miguel just raked, and he does. He's one of the best hitters of the entire decade. Won 4 batting titles, 2 MVP awards, Triple Crown. I mean, is that good? Jeez Louise. Okay, starting pitching. They pick 5. Clayton Kershaw with a 1.64 ERA plus and 59.3 WAR. Justin Verlander, 1.36 ERA plus and 56.2 WAR. Max Scherzer, 1.34 ERA plus with 56.1 WAR. Madison Bumgarner, 1.20 ERA plus and 32.2 WAR. And then Chris Sale, 1.40 ERA plus and 45.4 WAR. Other guys they thought about: Zach Greinke, David Price, Cole Hamels, and John Lester. So going through the list, I think, when I looked at this list, Kershaw, Verlander, Scherzer, those guys were like easy. They've been just absolute studs the entire decade. They're still going. It's crazy. You look at the last couple, Bumgarner. Interesting. So if you look at his WAR, he's 13th in the decade, right? And even some of his best years, like, they talk about how DeGrom, he's not as good as DeGrom, and DeGrom's best years not as good as Kluber, and Kluber's best years. But man, have you ever looked at his postseason stats? They're ridiculous. Ridiculous. The best postseason pitcher ever, maybe. You see his World Series stats? Go check out his World Series stats if you haven't seen those. Unbelievable. All right. Interesting thing though, if you look at Lester. So Lester trails Bumgarner in WAR, but he had 148 wins in the decade. Man, that's a lot. And then Greinke and Sale tied for the 5th spot when they did the voting. But they ended up choosing Sale because of basically his dominant peak. So 140 ERA plus to 128 for Greinke. Greinke could probably be in there. It's tough to only do 5 guys when it comes to starting pitching. But they went with Sale. And another thing they mentioned, he received Cy Young votes in 7 different seasons compared to 4 for Greinke. So, and no doubt, I know Sale had a rough year last year, but he was basically unhittable for a lot of the decade. And then for a relief pitcher / closer, they went with Craig Kimbrell. 195 ERA plus, oh my lord, and a 19.6 WAR. And the other guys were Kenley Jansen and Aroldis Chapman, other guys they considered. So Kimbrell led the decade in saves, 346. Jansen was number 2 at 301. He had a lower ERA than both of them. And he was the same as Chapman, 41.1% strikeout rate. Craig Kimbrell was unhittable. When he was with the Braves, it was lights out, unfair. So I'm fine with that selection there. And that's all we got, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, let me know in the comments section below where you agree and disagree. Let's talk about it down there. Okay, guys, that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. Share the video with all your friends. All that good stuff. And we'll talk to you later.